Hi, I'm N7 Strider, back with a comic review after quite a lengthy absence, and I am starting up yet another new series with Grayson #1. First up, I hate the artwork on the front. Dick Grayson's head looks tiny in the perspective used, and it makes it look like his forearm is actually bigger than his head. And also there's just a little bit too much pink, and there's actually, you can't see it through here, but there's like spatters of ink, kind of like as they were drawing the art cover for it, they just dropped some ink and just thought, leave it on there, it looks kind of cool. Also, you know, Dick Grayson's face looks just a little bit weird, and it made me actually think he was Frank Castle for a moment. And there's the hated Dick Grayson uses guns now. Let me just say, he does use a gun in this comic, but not in the way you're expecting. He doesn't shoot anyone outright. So besides the art cover, I do like the art all the way through. This is art by Mikhail Janin, who I actually grew to love during the initial run on Justice League Dark back in September 2011, I believe. Back when Justice League Dark is one of the initial launch books for the New 52, and I really did like Mikhail Janin's art, so it's just like, that is fine. Just I didn't know that he was the artist attributed to this until I actually picked this issue up, and it was just like, I was glad it was him, because I knew his artwork was pretty damn good. I know he dealt with an acrobat character as well, Deadman, meaning that I knew he would be able to capture Dick Grayson's motion in, you know, like he'd be fluid and it'd translate well onto the page exactly what was going on. Sorry, just it is red hot here in the at the moment, and I'm just like currently dripping with sweat right here. So yeah, the art was pretty damn good throughout. There was only maybe like one or two panels where it was a little unsure of what was going on. That damn ice cream van's back. I had to just stop recording because he turned up again. Regular viewers will know that this ice cream van always comes around and just disturbs me when I'm recording. So yeah, the story was weirdly paced. It didn't always explain things particularly well. It was when the things weren't explained well that the pacing seemed to break up a little bit for me. The actual story is a spy thriller, and during that whole segment, which is set on board a train in Russia, the Trans-Serbian Express or something it's called, during that whole section, the pacing was fantastic, and the whole spy thriller sort of aspect was great. But it was when these stories started to get a little bit more complex, you actually had to physically slow down and just like really read what was in front of you. You're just like, hang on, like, what's going on here? Because the Dick is actually in contact with Matron, otherwise known as Helena Bertinelli, throughout the entire comic, and via radio or sometimes face-to-face interaction. And then there's also the Russian SVR counter agents who are also doing their thing. There's a guy watching the train. There's this Ninel guy who's the target of the story, and I won't spoil anything about him, but he's like a big guy. But there's quite a cool scene with him later on. And it was when things were getting a bit complex that you had to just slow down and really, you know, take a look at what you were reading and just like, so what's going on? Where's the positioning going on here? I mean, it is like pretty straightforward, but for myself, I like to know everything that's going on and just get my facts straight going into things. It didn't make it unpleasurable to read, and it was nice and fun, and I really did like the spy aspect of it and this evolution of Dick Grayson's character. A lot of people have been annoyed that he's no longer Nightwing, just saying like he should have remained Nightwing, but I love this decision myself, just like seeing him go on another evolution of his character. We've seen him be Nightwing for a long time now, we've seen him be Robin for a long time, and there is actually on the very first page a nice tribute to his flying Grayson uniform. Is the first Nightwing uniform that he ever wears, I believe back in the 70s, which was a bit disco. He wore it in the Teen Titans, so it was just nice that his flying Grayson uniform is actually his Nightwing uniform as well from back in the day. Of course, they do also show that you know, the modern Dick Grayson uniform. Whether red or blue, it doesn't really matter for me, just as long as the character's the same. of the new Nightwing uniform. It didn't really matter to me, red or blue. It's just, it doesn't matter as long as the character's the same. I couldn't care less what the colour is. Damn ice cream van, I hope he just goes away somewhere. So yeah, so the story arc was for this issue was very enjoyable. I just reading through it, despite having to slow down on occasion, it was a bit just like, you know, it was the pacing at the parts where you had to slow yourself down just so you knew what was going on. That was kind of frustrating. But the flow of the comic, other than that, was actually very good. And the art was consistent throughout, just without, you know, a couple of confusing panels, but other than that, very enjoyable. It's hard to say where the story is going to be going, and it's kind of hard at the end to really get invested in this because the story is just, you know, just starting. It's going to take a couple of issues to get into this. So I'd just say this comic is slightly above average at best. I couldn't actually say like go out and read this because it's fantastic. If you're a long time Dick Grayson fan, you're probably picking this up and reading it anyway, just to see where they're going with this, or at least, you know, finding like reviews online just to see what people are thinking of it. Maybe you're watching, well, you will be watching mine if you're hearing my voice right now. It's a bit weird, sorry, I'm a little bit tired. So I'm going to go into spoilers as I do with all my comic reviews, where I talk a little about the story. And as I said, it's a spy thriller set on board a train on like a Trans-Serbian Express or something. And they're trying to, Dick and Helena Bertinelli, whose call sign is Matron, are trying to extract a target. His name is Ninel. They're after him for some reason. There's also some Russian counter agents called the SVR who are also trying to capture this Ninel. And sorry, I am really quite warm. They're also trying to extract this Ninel, but of course they're unsuccessful. There's a blonde woman involved in this. There's a guy who Dick Grayson actually takes out rather well when he actually boards the train for the first time. He lands on the roof and this guy grabs hold of him. It's at this point where Dick Grayson draws his gun and he uses it, throws it. It bounces off the telegraph pole, bounces back and hits the guy in the head. So he does use the gun, but not in a way you're expecting. It happens within the first couple of pages that Dick Grayson takes him out in this manner. And there's also like this guy who's dressed all in black, who's a bit like an SS. I'm thinking of it in my head as I was reading this. He's dressed a bit like a gimp, if I'm perfectly honest, like all in leather with like a hood and all sorts. He looks weird. This guy's called Midnighter, and he's also a Russian agent as part of the SVR. Of course, these Russian SVR agents, they're you know, unsuccessful. Dick Grayson manages to get this big guy called Ninel extracted, and he actually does this by spilling a red wine on the blonde woman's dress, who's trying to seduce this Ninel guy, and she just like storms off to you know, fix herself. But there's also like a sleeping agent in this red wine, so she just like, as she goes through into the next carriage, she just falls asleep, and you know, Helena Bertinelli actually confronts her and just like, I'm just going to leave you here just to sleep. And this Russian agent, the blonde woman, she's just like saying, it's CIA or what are you? And she just passes out. So yeah, it's like Dick Grayson extracts him. This Ninel guy gets off the train, and it's at this point where he uses his hypnos chip, which is like in his head or something. It doesn't really explain it all too well. And it kind of like, he uses hypnotic suggestion, as the name implies, to say to Ninel like, hey look, we're friends. And I think it kind of implies that it rewires Ninel's memories to make him think they've been friends for a long time, they've experienced all this stuff together, but it doesn't really explain it all too clearly. I was just like, the artwork at this point is trying to say it, but it's one of the confusing panels where you're just like, is it trying to say they've been friends for a while or not? And it's one of the panels that was a bit confusing to me, especially since the whole issue doesn't really explain how this hypnos works. It does seem to be like post-hypnotic suggestion, or just like, you know, trying to influence someone. So he influences Ninel to run away from the train because they are under fire from more Russian SVR agents, and they just like quickly scarp into a cooling tower out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't really transition all that well at this part of the comic. It's just like, train here, cooling tower here. So the transition's a little bit weird. And it's at this point where Grayson comes under attack from Midnighter, the guy who's dressed like in all the leather and looks a bit weird. And I do like that Russia has its own like supervillains and superheroes. It's kind of like what I predicted was going to happen, and why Dick Grayson is now in Russia, working for Spiral. I also forgot to mention that he's there working for Spiral at Batman's behest. Batman asked him to do this, just like Spiral up to something. Now that you are you know, your death has been faked, and you're unmasked, you can't continue on your vigilante career. You're at a perfect place now because you have been unmasked to infiltrate Spiral. So he is there at Batman's behest. He's not working for Spiral, he's actually spying on Spiral. He's a double agent. So yeah, at this point, as I'm saying, he's attacked by this guy called Midnighter, who actually uses a Spider-Man quote, "your friendly neighborhood Midnight." And I was just like, what? You can't be doing that, DC, that's just wrong. So yeah, there's a fight between Dick Grayson and this guy Midnighter, and Dick Grayson actually tries to use the Hypnos chip on this Midnighter guy, but it doesn't work. This Midnighter is obviously like a strong-willed individual, and he can just resist it. He's just like, well, I know you're a Spiral agent now. So it's just like it's at this point where it reveals why they're after this Russian chunky guy called Nell. He's superpowered. He just blasts this Midnighter straight through a wall with this like purple death beam sort of thing, and he's all like, Nell's glowing through his skin, and he says he's hot. So in fact, it shows him throughout the entire comic, just like he's always sweating, kind of like myself right now, and he's just like always saying like, I'm so warm at the moment. And it turns out that this Nell is I had to write this down, a meta-bio weapon, and the whole operation was to neutralize this guy, not kill him, just dispose of him safely somewhere. It does cut back to Spiral's after Dick Grayson knocks out this Ninel guy. It does go back to Spiral's base of operations, which is St. Hadrian's Finishing School for Girls. I don't know where this is located, but judging by the architecture of the building, it makes me think maybe England, but I'm unsure. Back at the base, Helena actually tries to seduce Dick Grayson. She's after the D, and Dick Grayson just says like, I can't, we've got to stay professional. Spiral, forbids that sort of thing. So it's just like he's just straight up. He does look tempted though, but he does not. He's fully aware he's a double agent and he shouldn't be like interfering. So Helena actually interrupted him trying to contact his handler for whoever he's working for as a double agent. Not Spiral, the other people. They refer to him, his handler on the other end, as Mr. Malone, and his call sign working for, I'm guessing, the US government, is Birdwatcher. Still no ID on Mr. Minos. It is at this point where we meet Mr. Minos for the first time, who is the head of Spiral, who Dick Grayson is spying on, and his face is all warped. It seems that his Hypnos chip forbids people at all times to just not know who they're viewing, or he's just got such a mastery of it. As I say, it doesn't really explain what this Hypnos chip is or what it does. The only explanation that they give of it is actually at this scene where Mr. Minos describes it as, and I wrote this down, can't be seen by cameras, so on a camera they will have a warped face just like Mr. Minos has, or memories. So I'm guessing if you're trying to recall what someone looks like, they see the warped face and they can't identify them. It's also where Mr. Minos discusses Spiral's objectives with Grayson, and his objectives, the way he puts it, are disposal of meta-bio weapons. And that's the only way he describes their objective with Dick Grayson. It's just like, I'm trying to no, it doesn't really say anything else of how the operation works. It's just no, it's just like no, it doesn't do it. This is no, it doesn't really go into details about what Spiral's objectives are. But it does discuss the hypnosis implants at this point, but it isn't all that clear of how they actually work. The comic closes with Mr. Minos off in a lab on his own with, but he's in contact with someone called Madame Netz or something, or Dr. Netz. It's like a German scientist, evil scientist. They're always German, and Frau Netz is how he refers to her. That's how I knew she was German, and you know it's weird scene because they're talking about some sort of project Paragon, I think it's called, and some origin templates. As I say, it doesn't really explain this sort of stuff all that well, but it's obvious that their true objective is to unmask metahumans and, you know, vigilantes such as Batman, and that their actually margin of error is actually at 89%, 90% for actually identifying who these people are. It actually shows that they suspect Batman is Bruce Wayne and a secondary course of action, and they think that Cyborg is Victor Stone with 89% error of margin. So it's just like, you know, margin of error. So it's just like they're getting close and they seem to know who these people are. But other than that, Spiral's objectives are a bit unclear in this issue. But maybe you know, next issue that sort of thing will be cleaned up and we can understand exactly what Spiral are after. I'm very happy that there's like the Russian metahumans in there and the Russian supervillains. That's all very cool. It's just like kind of says like, look, when Forever Evil going on and Dick Grayson was unmasked, Russia didn't care because they've got their own problems to deal with. I kind of suspected that sort of thing was going to happen before this issue came out, and I was just like, if I was given the you know, if I was going to be writing Grayson, that's what I would have done. Just like, Russia has its own heroes, its own villains. They didn't care what was happening during you know, in Forever Evil. They had their own stuff going on. That's the way I would have wrote it, and it was good to see that this is actually the way they went, and hopefully it'll be handled a lot better than what I would have done. So yeah, that's been my Grayson. Sorry, my voice is getting a bit husky already. I'm not recording well. That's been my Grayson issue 1 review. All in all, I'd just say it's slightly above average. It's not a great read. It was the pacing sometimes where it was you had to really read what was going on, and the certain things that it didn't explain all that well, where you're just like, hang on, what's going on here? That ruined the experience for me, but it wasn't terrible, and the art all the way through was fantastic. I really do like Mikkel Janin's art style, apart from that cover, which I hate. So yeah, I think I've discussed absolutely everything I need to do with this issue. A bit shorter than usual, I'm hoping, but let me know what you guys think. If you've read it, what you think of the issue yourselves. I've been N7 Strider, and I should go.